Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Welcome to my full moon breakdown that occurs here on September 29th at 10:57 a.m. UTC time. For those of you that are on the East Coast, that's 5:57 a.m. For those of you on the Central Standard Time, that's 4:57 a.m. And for those of you on the West Coast, that is 2:57 a.m. on September the 29th. We have ourselves a corn harvest full moon. I want to take this opportunity to say thank you to Nadiya Shah for allowing me to do this full moon breakdown for all of you. So here we are. I thought I would kind of show you exactly what the sky looks like on this day and what's being hit the most. So when we're talking about here, I'm going to use a little drawing here. We're talking about really, here's this moon at 6 degrees Aries, when it will be at its opposition to the sun right here, and of course Pallas. The sun will be at 6 degrees. It's 0 minutes, which I think is very interesting. You got the moon at 6 degrees 0 minutes. Conjunct, though, the sun will be conjunct Pallas at 7 degrees, and then it's going to make a nice, so we see this opposition, right? This isn't an opposition, you guys know that, but it's being extra here. You see, you have this asteroid Vesta at 3 degrees Cancer. So it's meant, so this full moon is actually making a T-square, and it's a cardinal T-square. So it's so interesting because every time we have a full moon, it's a lot of energy. And Aries ruler, which is Mars, rules energy. And I think it's so interesting that Mars is in the sign of Libra during this time, and it's conjunct the South Node, where we have Chiron with the North Node there at Aries. But cardinal T-squares, like the one we have for this full moon, it's about new beginnings and ideas, starting things. You know, full moons are generally about endings sometimes and culminations almost always. And it's more or less a balance between your needs, which we often find in relationships and partnerships, balancing that with our individual goals. So the low side of all full moons is this fight, this, well, I need this and I want that, and they need that and I want this. And then when you get a T-square, it's like crisis and conflict. But what a T-squared offers us is motivation. So this full moon is going to be more energy because of Aries. The full moon is flavored with Aries. And it's so interesting because the nodes just changed signs not too long ago. We are in the North Node Aries, South Node Libra axis. So it's a time of our needs, our desires, and self-love, you could say, self-awareness, authenticity, and balancing that out with truth, relationships, diplomacy, sort of this idea here in the background. Now, there's always low sides to everything. So, although you might consider yourself very zen and calm and cool, all of you watching, there will be other people that are not going to be so zen, calm, and cool during this full moon. When you have a full moon in Aries, it brings about a lot of impatience. So the people in your life, especially the relationships, your partnerships, friendships, family, romance, these types of things, they may not have the patience you want or deserve. And so this can bring about some arguments. This can bring about a family member being too brash. or a business partner or romantic partner being too bold or saying something you're like, man, they didn't even consider my feelings, the moon. So this type of Aries on the lower side with people who may be living in a state of unconscious behavior, or they're just tired and they're going through their day to day, you're going to see a lot of that. I think this is a full moon that offers itself with very aggressive driving because the moon rules short distance travel. So I just want everyone to be a little bit careful on the road around September 29th. And I would say September 28th, 29th, and 30th. Just be more of a defensive driver if you drive than you were normally. If you're on a bike, the same thing applies. A little bit more aggressive driving going on. People kind of feeling like where they need to go. Need and short distance travel with the full moon is more important than anything. And remember, Aries is this warrior that leaps without looking, which I think is very fascinating because, again, I drew this here. Let's rewind. Right here. There's an asteroid here called Pallas. Pallas and Aries are both god and goddess of war. And the difference between the two of them is it's like so perfect that Pallas is opposing the moon in Aries in the sign of Libra. Because Themis, the goddess that represents Libra, is very much, in my opinion, similar to Pallas. Pallas was worshipped by some because of her benevolence and her unique outside of the box type of thinking and strategy. She was the best strategist when it comes to war. But she also had this compassionate, diplomatic side to her, which is the higher version of Libra, the highest version of Libra. So I think Pallas is in its very proper place being there in Libra. But there's this, like, one could say, when it comes to the truth of your career or the truth of what you want to do in your life, the absolute truth, objectively, without everybody else's opinions, the absolute truth to that, when you dig down deep to it and look at it from an objective point of view, how do you balance that between your needs? That can be a bit impulsive. So this is this. If you can find the energy of getting your needs met with the strategic and just this very careful, strategic search to achieve exactly what you want in your life, that's also part of this. We can all get what we want, but we don't have to be so reckless. And so that's easier said than done when it comes to a full moon because it's so relationship themed so many times that other people, you'll see some people out there who will personify that brashness, and you'll also meet other people who personify this Pallas Athena here. And remember, this is 3 conversations in 3 cardinal signs because you have Vesta. Now, let me make that a little bit better here. Vesta, for a lot of people will interpret Vesta in astrology as devoted to a cause or devotion and some other things too. But I too agree with that. But I also agree with the other additional interpretation of Vesta, which is Eros Gamos, which is sort of this idea of merging with your higher self. It's very spiritual. It's as almost as, you got like a lot of, it's almost this trinity of emotions, the earthly stuff, desire, and relationships. It's almost like, the full gamut. In the background to all this, you have, let's get a different color. You have the nodes. So you have the North Node here conjunct Chiron. So the North Node at 24 degrees, Chiron 18. It's in its opposition to the South Node. How about we get rid of this? It's in its opposition to the South Node here with Mars. And then they're speaking to Pluto in another cardinal T-square. Pluto retrograde in Capricorn. That's in the background. In my opinion, you're going to feel the full moon. It's going to be the loudest conversation September 29th. But it still highlights this balance between Aries and Libra, what I want versus what the needs are of other people. And there's such benefit from our relationships or our one-on-one interactions, because when we have somebody who's very different, we can see things about ourselves that we can't see regularly. So we absolutely need relationships, and they help us. They help us remind us that we are part of the one thing, which is everything, which is divinity and divine and source or universe or whatever words you want to use. But here comes Pluto retrograde in Capricorn to say, are you sure that your foundations and everything you're kind of looking for, your structure of your life, you sure that this is exactly what you want? It's almost like a grace period sometimes when Pluto is retrograde, because Pluto comes along in the sign of Capricorn and says, if this is serving your highest good, I'm going to reward you with power and wealth. If this is not serving your highest good and have longevity, it's going to end. And sometimes we meet this personification of Pluto in Cap too. We'll meet acquaintances or business partners, clients, or whomever, family members that personify that as well, to remind us of like, okay, here's somebody who is manipulative, who's using power, vulnerability for the wrong reasons. And then you'll meet others who are Plutonian in a positive way. But here we are in this review time. I know someone who had Pluto transiting their midheaven when it went retrograde. It was the entire time it went retrograde on their midheaven, they had to think about retirement. As soon as that retrograde ended with Pluto on their midheaven transiting, they retired. So you see, it's this retrograde as a review time. It also gives off this harsher aspects of whatever that planet in the sign is. So we're getting a little bit harsher influence of Pluto in Cap, and we're seeing that around the world. You're certainly seeing that in politics, in governments. So if they can figure out how to be diplomatic and serve each other's needs and fulfilling their needs and all that, then they'll get what they want. But if not, it will cause collapses in structures and governments and all that. But it also is about, because Chiron is with that North Node, we are reminded about, yes, on one hand, these unresolved pains, hurts, and angers from our past are wounds that they never seem to heal for some of you. You think that. And because it's in Aries, this is about sometimes how people see us physically or our personality. A lot of you will be reminded of your environments growing up. But the unresolved problems that we cannot fix, that seem so painful, that are ongoing, it's like that never ends and we can't heal it. There is a solution, and that solution is you can help somebody else that has a problem and a pain and a wound in those areas, in self-acceptance, in their confidence, in loving themselves, in the way they look, their personality, how society sees them. Or they just feel, I'll never get what I need. I'll never get my desires fulfilled and blah, blah, blah. That's where you come in. That's where you can say, no, you know what? How about I help you? I don't know what I can do, but here's what I got. And maybe this will be of help. Maybe I have resources, whatever you can do. You be the Chiron mentor to their Chiron wound. And this is how we transmute some things like this. So that's sort of in the background. And then lastly, before I move on to, I want to do a breakdown for every rising sign. We have, let's erase that. We have in the background, even from that, we talked about Vesta with this full moon. And I know a lot of you may be new to Vesta, but oof, what am I doing here? Yeah. Here's Vesta, right? We know it's making a T-square with the full moon, but it's also making this nice, beautiful grand water trine here to Saturn retrograde in Pisces, and way over here to Ceres in Scorpio. There's a couple other asteroids that I use, but we'll go with Ceres and Ceres trining Saturn retrograde Pisces and Vesta in Cancer. So anytime you have a grand water trine, it's fated and it's easy, soft aspect, blessing, intuition, yes, more emotions. So it's almost very Piscean, but remember, it's blessings in if letting go, surrender, manifesting things you really felt from your soul, and connecting to that part of you that is eternal. So it's a very spiritual in the background energy that's flowing there, and it's intuitive. If so I kind of will, there are some signs that I feel will feel that more so than others. But I would say if you're watching this in your spiritual, if you are in a position to do a reading, or you're in a position to do some sort of healing, counseling, teaching, mentoring, something like that, this is a fated time. You should do it. You'll be really helpful. If you're struggling with manifesting something that you feel came from above, from your higher self, from your soul, from the universe, from spirit, I would look out. This is the time. I think you'll also meet, it's possible that you have people in your life that you'll meet up with that personify the positive influence of this. They have learned how to let go. They are good at law of attraction. They're great at manifesting. And they are in touch with their spiritual side. And they are committed to following a spiritual journey, which is really Vesta as well. It's your personal, individual, spiritual relationship with source, creator, divine, whatever word you use. But those are subtle. I think, for most people, because it's a full moon, and when you have a full moon, it's the dominating energy. It's the thing that everyone's going to feel the most. So everyone really is going to feel mostly this full moon, Sun Palace with Vesta making a nice T-square. That's what you're going to feel. The rest of it, all of you watching, you'll feel the rest of the stuff, the grand water trine, and you'll feel the nodes with Pluto as well in their T-square. So I think that grand water trine will bless you all in your relationships as well. Pay attention to, I would say 36 hours before and after the full moon. Who in your life, family, friends, romance, business, acquaintances, groups, or whatever, embodies that emotional trust and that spiritual connection that you just can't describe, or it's intangible. That's that nice grand water trine as well. It's a really great time. It's a very intuitive time. If you think you lost your connection to your intuitive side or spirit, this is a reminder for you. You'll have an experience. So let me go sign by sign now. Aries, starting with you, this full moon, this corn harvest moon, will be a culmination or insight aha realization in the area of your life that has to do with your environment from the past, growing up, or your early years, your physical looks, your personality, how people see you, basically. And really, this is a great time to do you. I want to be careful with the word selfish, but this is a great time to do you and find the balance between that and your partnerships, relationships, as well as maybe some good luck when it comes to career. Maybe some good luck when it comes to something like work related, or I would say more so, there could be something there that if you have a family that's not blood, or you have a place that you call home that's not home, so to speak, let's say that, and there's this undeniable connection to that, I would go there. I would be around those people or go there. It will help you find the epiphany and the insight and really get away from all the noise. Because for some of you, Aries rising during this full moon, you're going to be like, you might make a mistake. You might say something to somebody else that you care about that you wish you didn't say, or you're really not understanding why they took it that way. Sometimes there's nothing we can do and fights are unavoidable. But I would say just try to be patient as much as you possibly can, even though that's not going to be the easiest thing for you to do, especially during this time. But I would say there's absolutely a solution. If you felt like exhausted, let's say that, when it comes to other people, whether it's your one-on-one interactions of late with people you work with, your customers, clients, your relationships, partnerships, whatever, you feel like I'm so like giving everything away from them and I'm not getting anything back, or you feel like people just are taking everybody else's side and are not listening to your side of things, you will have your aha moment. I would say too, if you feel lost at all, think about what it is that made you happy growing up. Was there any passions and hobbies that you loved? If you have been considering changing your physical looks, whether you're getting a haircut, new clothing, or maybe you want to change how you approach people in life. And then the other thing is, if there's something that you really believe in, your truth, whether that's a social cause or that's just something that you live and stand by, that is like spiritual, or it's a humanitarian thing, or whatever it is, or you want people to see you in a certain way, like more respectable, or you want people to regard you as funny or creative or whatever the case may be, I would do it. Just, engage in all those activities. Do those hobbies. Throw yourself into those creative things, or do the things that you think that you want people to recognize you as. And you'll start to kind of feel better during this full moon time. There's going to be an ending or a completion to something in regards to the things that you feel you love. If you feel like you want to get away, you want to be alone, this is the time to get, this is the time for that. If you've been feeling like you wanted to tell your significant other, I need a day by myself, or I need to treat myself to something, this is the time to do that too. But if there is something you stand behind that could play a part and an impact in society, like a cause, I would do something regarding that during this full moon time, because it could really give you blessings down the road. Okay. So for those of you that are Taurus, this is a culmination or an insight regarding things that are unseen, spirit, mystical, magical, imagination, artistic, and sometimes on the lower side of it, it can be things that are not so healthy. It could be vices, and it could be unconscious behaviors, and finding that balance between that and our mundane stuff, our very earthly stuff, our very routines and day to day and hour by hour. So, if you are spiritual and you are a Taurus rising sign, then this is a time where I think that asteroid Vesta will impact the area of your life that has to do with your spirit and your relationship to source, the divine, God, the great computer in the sky, the great mystery, whatever you call it, or your soul. So there is this part of you that's going to want to not do anything. And that's fine. If you can get away with breaking away from your routines or something like that, it may be worth it. Because for some of you watching who are Taurus rising and you are in tune with your intuition, or you're into spirit, your soul, or whatever, you're going to have that pull to really magnify that. Other people who are Taurus rising, you might find yourself in places that are not so spiritual. You might know somebody who is in a hospital or is in an institution of some sort that's secluded from society because of their own mistakes or their own undoing or their own challenges. So it's kind of, what's the word? Dramatic. If you do find yourself visiting somebody who's in a place like that, hospital, institution of some sort, rehabilitation, they're not doing well. I will just tell you that you being there will really help them, whether they know it or not, on a subconscious, unconscious level, and it will bring you wisdom that you will absolutely, definitely put to use at a later time. But this does not mean, I don't want to say that it's the universe's way of saying, hey, if you lose yourself, this is what happens. I'm not so sure that that's the way I would look at it. I would look at it as we are all, as a reminder that we are all truly part of one thing, one spirit, one heartbeat. And that's the way I would look at that, instead of, well, they did this and this might happen to me. Don't be in a fearful state. That's not what this full moon is supposed to bring you. There could be also good news for somebody who had health issues. Let's just say that there could be some good news for them too. For those of you that take care of people who have vices, addictions, physical health issues, this could bring about some good news to you regarding that stuff. For those of you that have in your birth chart something in the 12th house that is not so pleasant, like a Pluto, like a Chiron, like something like this that is afflicted or not so whatever. In other words, if you feel like you don't belong in the world, this full moon, in my opinion, is an opportunity for you to cry. It's an opportunity for you to hold space for yourself, to honor those feelings. But remember that sometimes it may be too complicated to figure out how we repair a wound. But it's not complicated extending your hand out to somebody else who's in a similar situation to offer your wisdom to help them. Yes, we know full moons are about these relationships in you and what you want versus what the relationship wants are, but for you, this is different. This could be a very spiritual, deep, emotional time for you, and a time for you to be a healer for somebody else. I would say, if you feel like you have had problems in relationships, Taurus rising, conflict, and you're still having it, and it doesn't seem to be getting any better, I would say this. I would say that make sure you take some time out to, I would go alone in nature because it rules the area of your life that rules faraway places or places that are isolated, I should say. And I would say this, sometimes when you don't take action and let things come to you that are fated and then take action, then when the time is appropriate, that's the right answer, especially when it comes to your needs and relationships or balancing relationships to your goals. Okay. For you, Gemini rising, this is a realization, an epiphany, a culmination, or seeing something you could not see before when it comes to your impact in groups of people, in communities, or in society at large. You may feel like you do not play a big part in this world, but you do. So it's about balancing this idea that you do play a significant, impactful part in this world and balancing that with having fun and letting your hair down and also shining that part of you that's this light that only you can shine. If you are asked to hang around with kids or animals or work with animals or go on a date or go on vacation, make sure that you can also, I would say it would be ideal if it was for friends or groups or if it's like a social group or a community where it's an online community and they're like, hey, you want to go for some fun? This is really it. Then you're really fulfilling the full moon. But I always feel like because it's the area of your life that rules groups of people and associations and all that, and you're part of society, to re-examine your friendships. Because your friends should reflect your ethics and your truths and your vision and your hopes about what your life is and what you feel like the most ideal, in a practical way, society should behave like and act like and live by. There also may be some positive news with money. I will say that. So I really think for you, Gemini rising, I would look out for September, 2 days before, September 27th, 28th, 29th, 30, and 31 for money. Good news with money. If you get no good news with money, some of you will like play the little lotto. Some of you will earn money through sport. Some of you will get paid. Some of you will, from a client that hasn't paid you. Some of you will be given an opportunity in your career that you didn't have before. And some of you who have been on the brink of going back and forth about charging more or whatever, you'll have the nudge. So it's all good when it comes to money for you. So moving on to Cancer rising. Cancer rising, full moon is your time of the month and year, basically, right? You are the child of the moon, after all. So every time we have a Cancer rising, full moon, or lunar eclipse, or anything with the moon, you feel it more. If you are a crier or you are emotional and you do cry, just let it out. Go cry. People will probably feel more gravitated towards you during this full moon than ever. And you have to be a little bit careful not letting them influence you on a subconscious level so much that you're upset and more sad or more angry. And some of their feelings and thoughts that you do not have normally could start to get confusing because you're like a sponge. But this could be a very good time for your career. Yay. Recognition time. So I would say, some of you possibly could be finally recognized in a way, and it may not be the biggest way you would want, but also some of you who don't know what you want to do for the rest of your life could get a little aha moment. Others, during this time, I would say over the last week, it's been priorities have been more so towards family and home and stuff like that. And now it's time for you to get the recognition. What is it that you want to do? What is it that you want to leave as an imprint on this planet before you go? That's this full moon for you. And it might be a little bit of an epiphany for you in those regards. If you feel like you've been going between two things, like, well, I could do these types of jobs, but I really want to do this, you probably will get a nudge either way. So that's good. I do have a recommendation for you, Cancer rising, and that is to go into silence. Find a moment throughout the day, use a timer, and have the timer go off. Give yourself a few minutes, maybe even 10 minutes or 15 minutes of complete silence. And just listen, do a breath awareness where you're listening to your breath. Try to allow your soul, your spirit to speak to you. And at the same time, it will allow you to detach from all these emotions in your environments and from other people, especially family, that's been kind of on your mind, or ancestor type of stuff, family connections, ancestors, emotions, all for the last week or so. It's really a time where you have to ask yourself, what is it that I need from my life that I want for myself? For those of you that get a promotion or get a lucky break, congratulations. Okay, Leo, my favorite sign because I'm a Leo sun. Leo rising, this full moon is a culmination or an ending in the areas of life that have to do with existential ideas in faraway places, or even, why don't I just say, this is trip time. It's time to have some fun. Let's go on an adventure. This is a time for Leos that this could full moon, if you decide to go somewhere, whether that's physically or it's metaphorically in your mind, your faith, everything that you used to know, you might go, wait a minute. Maybe my thoughts about what happens beyond this world isn't exactly what's true to me. So for some of you, I just want to say, be open to the possibility to have a change in what you believe in. Whether some of you could be getting your advanced degrees and like your master's degree, your doctorate. Never be afraid to change your mind. For others, this is really more so your spirituality, your religion, your belief, plural. Don't be afraid of change. This is one of the signs that will have a premonition of the future as well. So congrats to you on that. I do recommend for you, Leo rising, to make some alone time so that you can get in touch with yourself, but do it your way. You have to figure out a way where you can get in touch with your soul and spirit in the only way that it works for you, not the way everyone else is doing it during this full moon time. And I would say, again, September 28th, the 29th, and 30th. Think about that. Again, if you do have any trips, I would take the trips. I would also say this. Some of you, Leo rising, will be offered or suggested to learn something new. You have to go back to your wisdom and say, does that new opportunity or something to learn, is that really for me or is it not? If it's not for you, don't do it. You really have to rely on that as well. For you, Virgo rising signs, this is another one of these full moon occasions where money does seem to be the topic for you. Now, for some of you, it will just be like you missed a bill or taxes or something financially, like a loan or a debt. While others, it'll be the universe or life putting you into a situation where you're being asked to be of help to somebody else who's really struggling, who's gone through crisis or a transformation or something bad. This is an opportunity and it's fated. I would say yes. I would say too, like the deeper meaning and the deeper, I guess, lesson for you, Virgo rising, is there will always be opportunities in this world and life, especially your life. You're a Virgo rising. You're of service. That's what you do, right? It's one of your strengths. But this particular full moon, almost all of you will be asked to be there for somebody else. But you need to maintain healthy boundaries. That's going to be easier said than done. So you're going to have to be a little tough, but also some of you will be learning about what other people did in your life that you trusted. That could be family, friends, romance, whatever. And that also could be institutions or entities that are big, that are conglomerates or whatever, that you never thought they would do what they did. That's unethical or wrong or whatever. You would have done it differently. And you'd be like, oh, I didn't see that coming. But the idea here, if it is something like loans, taxes, a bill you missed, is life is about, money is an energy, And it's something that we have as tangible that we can use to exchange goods and services, okay? And in order for this physical reality to maintain itself, it's really good. It's really useful. It's really useful. So don't get too stressed out by like this out of this out of the blue debt. And you're like, I'll never make my you will. You will definitely overcome it, no matter what. There's always a solution to every problem. Don't let something small like that ruin your week, your month, or your year. Never let that happen. The bigger, deeper lesson wasn't about paying taxes or paying the bill that you missed, or paying that debt or paying that loan. The bigger, deeper lesson is how can we use these things for good instead of for manipulation. And you'll probably, most of you watching who are Virgo rising, be put into a situation in a very individual and personal way where you could be there for somebody else who absolutely needs somebody to trust because their life has been turned upside down, or they're lost. So you'll actually be there doing what you do best, being of service. But again, I do want to caveat, make sure you put up your boundaries and limit your time. Make sure you are really good about that because that's part of the lesson too. It's all about balance with full moons. Don't lose yourself. Libra rising, this is this is in the area of your life that you love, relationships. It's in the area of life that concerns partnerships and even one-on-one contracts. And there's also, in my opinion, good news here for career for you. So, for you, Libra rising, this definitely can bring about some fights, some arguments, some disputes, some power struggles when it comes to your personal relationships and partnerships, for sure. If you've been if you've had a problem with, let's say, a contract, whether one person is not meeting you somewhere, this might be good news. This might be a culmination to that, or it could be, if it wasn't in your highest good, it ends. I just want to say that especially the lower degree Libra risings, okay? For those of you that have especially the 0 degree through 10 degrees or the lower degree of Libra rising, this full moon can manifest itself and might not even manifest itself, although it probably will in your spouses or your relationships. It could be any of your one-on-one interactions. So, anyone you interact throughout the day with at a store or, in the neighborhood, really anywhere where, they might come at you in a very aggressive way. And you're like, what is this? Just remember you have Pallas in your sign right now, the asteroid, and it's blessing you with extra diplomacy. Not that you didn't need it, because you do. Nobody's more diplomatic than a Libra, and sometimes almost to a fault. But Pallas being in your sign erases all that. There's nobody better at strategy and diplomacy. She's like the best version of you. So remember that if you get somebody who comes along your way, it doesn't mean it's a reflection of who you are because they act like that. Remember who you are. What advice could I possibly have for a Libra rising when it comes to partnerships and relationships? Because after all, it's something that they tried to figure out for their entire life. But I would also say that your strength and your destiny as a Libra rising or sun or moon is to figure out the truth. So you absolutely need the Aries and the full moon in Aries, because you need that motivation. You need that energy. And sometimes you do need to leap without looking to figure out what it is that you want. For those of you Libra rising that have been lost when it comes to career, I really you have to look at September the 29th for this corn harvest moon. Maybe you need to brainstorm and take a moment, that September 28th, 29th, and 30th, because you really could see some progress here. If you've been thinking about making any alterations with your career, get a pen and paper and be open to the fact that you might have insights about your career that you didn't have before as well. Even though it doesn't fall in the area of your chart that has to do with career, it is your sun, and oftentimes your sun sign can show us career. That's why I'm saying this. So be diplomatic, discover your truth, do you, but don't let other people's out of control nature throw you off. And I do think you're all going to have some good news. And I do want to say this before I move on to Scorpio with you Libras. Your devotion to what exactly you want to do in this world, for career or for something that may be voluntary, whatever it is that you really love, it's definitely worth it, and it's definitely part of your soul's plan before you got here. So you're on the right path. Okay, for those of you Scorpio rising, this full moon is going to bring about an ending to something in your routines, your day-to-day routines, or it could bring a culmination or an insight that you didn't see before when it has to do with your diet. For those of you that are Scorpio rising, this can bring about some changes here, good and bad, but really ultimately long-term good, although it could be very confusing. If you have something work-related, career-related that you want to be like an expert in, you want to be perfect in, you want to be the best in, you can finally see something here, whether that's good news from somebody else that motivates you, or validation, or it's an insight about, wait a minute, I got to change this. If I want to be the best, if I want to be an expert, if I want this, if I want to be truly perfect this job or this skill or something in my career, this is what I got to do. Others, there will be this other part to the Scorpio rising, that your diet has to change, or you have some vices, addictions, or unconscious behaviors that we don't have to get rid of everything that may not be healthy for you, but we definitely need a balance. You need to figure that out. I would also consider somebody that comes along your way, Scorpio rising, that has a completely different viewpoint, comes from a different background than you do, or literally lives somewhere very far away. They can bring you either a different alternative way of looking at things, or they can just bring you motivation. I would say this too. Your faith in your soul and your higher self, whatever words you use, can ultimately lead to success when it comes to whatever it is that you're trying to be an expert in, or your expertise in, or your health and your diet. So for those of you Scorpio rising, whether you're religious or you're spiritual, I would also be open to that helping you instead of it being a conflict for you as well. I think that a lot of you Scorpio rising, you'll be talking to somebody who you may regard as a teacher or a mentor or spiritual or philosophical, something like that too. It could be a friend, or it could be an acquaintance, or it could be literally one of those things. If you feel like it's like opposing your work life, or it's whatever they're saying is too hard for you to change your health, your diet, your routines or whatever, I would just write down whatever they say and take a minute. Maybe you have to come back to it an hour later or the next day and think, maybe this is what they meant. Or how do I apply this to help me? For some of you, Scorpio rising, if you feel overwhelmed with these ideas of improving your health or changing your unconscious behaviors or the things you do or patterns that are toxic or whatever the case may be, or you feel like you love something in life and it's just not working out the way you want it to, you're not there yet, or life is just really rough, it's just like a grind for you, consider going somewhere during this full moon that is an adventure. And when you come back from it, whether that's in a meditation or it's on a plane somewhere fun, I think you'll get that epiphany that you were looking for, and or that extra boost. So for those of you Capricorn rising sign, this full moon will be in an area of your life that has not exactly, it doesn't come easy to you. Your strength, Capricorn rising, we all know it's work, and it's Capricorn is all about longevity and structure, but solid. Really, sometimes that can work against them. Sometimes they can just go after something for a long period of time and get nowhere with it. This full moon illuminates the part of your life that has to do with emotions from childhood or really deep rooted, which could also bring about ideas about ancestors and family. For those of you watching that are Capricorn, and some of you Capricorn sun, moon, definitely Capricorn rising. If you're into ancestor healing, do it, do it, do it. Do some sort of ritual, do some sort of prayer, ancestor healing, whatever it is that you're into. For others who are not into that at all, you may have a different definition of what family is. It could be your friends. It could be something totally different. It could be, your pets. Or you could have like a combination of some cousins and some other relatives that you consider family. If you're given an opportunity to hang around with groups of people or people that you consider to be family, this is the time for that. It's also a time for you to reassess. Your strength is career. Your strength is being an authority. But life in the physical world has its duality. And this life is not all about work and like creating something tangible. It's also about these intangible things that are like feelings and relationships and experiences. And so, you came from this Virgo season and now you're in Libra season and you're a Capricorn rising. It could feel like this fall time is you feel like less anxious maybe because you're starting to hit your stride. But there are things in this life you don't want to regret. And one of them is feelings and real like experiences. And most of that is with other people. So I want to say to you, Capricorn rising, first of all, some of you who may be on the verge of a new partnership or relationship that has like a spiritual bond, I would go after it because it could really help out the rest of your life. So, and that could be like a week ago you met somebody who there's a spiritual trust. It could be a client, it could be a business partnership, whatever that is. if there's some sort of really sincere trust to it, I would agree to it. Or I would really consider it if I were you, because it could really pay off in your personal life, in your career. I would also say this too. Whatever you consider to be home, some of you will have a new insight or a change to that. Some of you will leave an apartment and go somewhere else. Some of you will be saying, no, this is by next year, I'm going to get a new house, or I'm going to have this, or I don't want to live on this coast. I want to live on that coast. Or some of you will say, you'll have your own ideas of what home is, or what, real security means to you. If you've been waiting basically for some news regarding a new home, a new place to live, you can finally start to see that. And if you get bad news regarding a new home or new place to live, it wasn't in your highest good. So trust me, there's one around the corner that is, and that will work out too. Okay. Aquarius. For Aquarius rising, so this is a time in your life where a lot of you will be asked to talk, to speak, to write. So if you're in a place where you're very talented with writing and speaking, say yes, say yes, say yes, say yes, say yes. If you were on the verge of collaborating and it has to do with anything regarding writing or speaking and it didn't work out, trust me, it was meant to be. It wasn't supposed to work out. Some of you you may have been trying to learn something, or you've had a class, been struggling with it. This is the time where you might start to see a different way to learn or to get through this class. Whether you got to take a moment on a Sunday instead of a Monday to study, or whatever the case may be. Others, you'll be very busy and active and moving and moving and moving and moving and moving, Aquarius. I do believe you're one of the signs that will receive a huge download, a huge spiritual, intuitive download and insight about the future. Aquarius rising. If you get to September 29th and you're like antsy, get in the car and drive. If you don't drive a car, get on a bike. If you don't want to bike, go for a walk, because that premonition or that channeling download from the universe, from your higher self, it will be awesome. I will say this too. For those of you that are Aquarius rising, if you have thought about getting into that field of spirit communication or doing readings for other people or channeling or whatever, I think I might be your full moon personified to say go for it. But you might get it in a different way too. If some of you Aquarius rising have an opportunity to hang around with cousins and siblings, this is a really good time for that. But it also could be a time for them arguing, so good luck with that. I also will say that just be careful when I talked about driving in the car, short distance travel, as well as getting on a bike or whatever, walking. Just, you're one of the signs that has to be careful with that too. So just drive defensive, watch out for other people on the road, because they may be sloppy and aggressive and assertive driving their car or whatever the case may be. So yeah, I'll leave it at that for you, Aquarius rising, but it should be a very cool time for you. We would love to hear from you if some of you go on to do readings, something like that, to be cool to hear from you. Last but certainly not least, Pisces rising. So this full moon hits the area of your life that could bring about some cash, money. So for those of you Pisces rising, Some of you will have some good luck go your way with money. For those of you that earn your own money, that you are maybe your own boss or you're your own contractor, whatever the case may be, you could get some positive news regarding that, and whatever the case may be. If you seem to have an issue there when it comes to money, like your own business, or like if you're on your independent contractor, and you get to around at the end of September, close to this full moon, and there's a problem, and let's say it goes bad, it's a time for you to readjust. I don't think it's a time for you to say, "Oh, I'm just going to give up." It's a time to maybe go in a different direction. But in order to figure that out, you kind of have to not get wrapped up in what other people are trying to tell you. So there's this nice balance between your idea of what comfort and your self-value is, and balancing that out with what other people perceive as shared resources, or money, or what their value is, like what they deem is ethically, morally right when it comes to, it could be finances. So some of you will be like, well, I owe this, and then they're saying I owe that, but it's really beyond that. It's much deeper for you Pisces rising. You're going to have certain people who may not appreciate, or they just don't understand you, and it doesn't really matter because it's your life. For other Pisces rising, if you're in a position to have some R&R, whether it's getting a massage or going to eat, go do that, okay? Others, it's a time where there's, again, other people outside of you that either have been manipulative, sneaky, or you've have revelations towards family members or your banks, lending institutions, that you're like, ugh, not good. And they could have done you wrong. There's a big lesson in all of this, and that is, first of all, you can overcome other people's toxic and manipulative ways for sure. And you can be a part of building a new world that we don't misuse power and wealth. That's one. The second is, no matter what we go through in life, whether it's a crisis or a massive challenge, we can overcome that and be reborn again. And the third thing is always take advantage of the stuff in life that only life can offer to us. Whether that is, you're a foodie, eat your food, go to your favorite restaurants, cook your favorite meals, whatever that is, or you like massages, or it's all about other things that maybe you don't care about any of that. Maybe you only care about something that you offer as a service. And that's your that's value. Do you value yourself, and do you value life? If you don't, let's say you're undervaluing yourself, or you're not comfortable, or the way you're going about your life, especially when it comes to how you make your own money, it might have some shakeups. For others, you'll just get a new insight. And while others out there, you'll be finally getting the news that you've been waiting for regarding that. So either way, I think don't give up. Whatever it is that you offer, it does have tremendous value. And don't forget that during this time, no matter how ugly, rude, or nasty people have been over the last week, whether that's in society or that's in your inner circle or whatever the case may be, just remember, this life is definitely valuable and it's worth it. That is your lesson of this full moon. Thank you all of you for watching, and happy corn harvest full moon here on September 29th. Thanks so much for watching.